How's it going? There's a lot of light in here. I'm used to doing shows where I can't see you all, but I can see every single one of your faces and eyes. Except for you back there. The light gets a bit too much. Well, that's really interesting. When I took my glasses off, I was about to say I could see less, but obviously I can see less. But literally, for some reason, it's darker without them, which would seem to be a physical impossibility, knowing what I know about optics. But if you know more than I do, let me know what the heck's going on. So thank you for coming to NerdCon Stories. It's really nice to see all of you, and it's really nice that you... Oh, there I am. It's really nice that you took this risk, because I'll be totally honest with you, I don't know what this is. So you definitely don't. It's like, I was like, I'm gonna do a thing, and you're like, hey! See you there! It's a nice thing for you to have done, because it's trusting. I will try not to betray that trust. I spend a lot of time on internet platforms, and I think mostly about that, but I also really like this sort of real-world platform thing. And in the same way, when I see, oftentimes, I'll see people in internet worlds of, we are the people who produce this platform that people do things with and on. You get folks who think that they should be the ones defining how people use their platform because it's theirs and they made the thing. But I've seen that is a dumb idea. And that in fact what you should do is be like, I made this! So that is the reason why I don't know what NerdCon is yet, because I made this. I feel like you get cool people in a place, and you let them, and so I'm watching very carefully from a secret room to see what you do and what you enjoy and what works and what doesn't, and because I want to make a better one of these next year, possibly. I'm so glad that you already... So are you going to come next year? You haven't seen anything yet. Okay, well, I'll hold you to that. I will expect all of you back. Shoot, I got distracted. So I have some good news. In 2003, during the siege of Baghdad, I went in a different direction than you thought. There was a lot of looting that went on, and obviously, Baghdad is a very good place for history, for artifacts of a cultural nature, and some of that stuff was lost, and that's sad and a bummer. That's not the good news. In the last, 5 or 6 years, the museums there have been doing this really interesting thing where they just, they say, okay, we know some of you guys took some stuff. It's cool. Just bring it back and we'll buy it from you. Don't take it onto the black market and try to get super top dollar for it because you might get killed. And also, we won't have it anymore. So the right thing to do is to come on by and we'll give you some money for the thing. And I don't know how you got it. I don't care if it was your brother's uncle's cousin. Whatever, it's fine. Just bring it by. We won't ask any questions. Which I think is really cool. And people come by and they show up with their thing. And they're like, yeah. and then they haggle and they sort of argue about how much it's worth. And then at the end they give them $200 or something. And you get this priceless cultural artifact back. And then I have $200 and I can get a real nice dinner with my wife. And I think that this is a good policy, and it shows trust and fortitude. And a really interesting thing happened a few years ago that we just found out about. Somebody walked into a museum in Baghdad and they were like, hey. And the people who like do the arguing about how much it's worth start arguing with him. And then like the historian who sort of was overseeing it was like looking around and he was like, wait, stop. How much does he want? And then the guy's like, he says he wants $800. And he's like, here's... So they take this thing, and they're not quite sure what it is, but you know it's a big deal. It's a piece of clay with some letters pressed into it, like Sumerian letters. And they take it back, translate it, and it is not something that used to be in the museum. It is not something that used to be in any museum. It is 20 lines from the Epic of Gilgamesh that we just didn't have before. And they're like, wait, what? Where did this come? Whose is this? Wait a second. Where did this come from? And they're like, we have a policy, we don't ask. Because like it wasn't from looting, because nobody had it before. So they have these 22 lines of the Epic of Gilgamesh. They translated it. It tells the story of Gilgamesh and his friend Enkidu going into the forest, and they kill a guy, and there's monkeys. It's great. Yeah, and now like I feel like I need to reread the Epic of Gilgamesh because there's a whole new scene. We should do some fanfic. So this is great news, and I like this because it doesn't just make me think about the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is sort of the first story we have record of, sort of it is, and the window that provides for us into the lives of and the worldviews of like our cultural and genetic ancestors and I also like it because there's also the story of like every day of this piece of clay's past 3,000 years. Like, was it a bookend? Was it a doorstop? Was it where did they cook pizza on it? Where has it been? And then I also think of like the story of the people who like thought that this story was so valuable and so wonderful and important to them and their culture that they pressed it into a bunch of pieces of clay. Like this was not an easy or inexpensive process. And just like lovingly made these tiny little letters in the clay and stored it so that we could have it 3,000 years later. And there people did that. Like there was a human being who was making those marks. When we run another event, the team that does this. Thank you to the team that does this, by the way. And so we do this other event in California around online video called VidCon, and we wanted to do another thing, and like basically I was like, okay, so I love this one thing, online video, and I do that. What if I'm gonna do another event, which I really want to do? What is the thing that we should talk about? This is the part that I wrote stuff down for. So I wanted to find something that provides way more value in culture than we give it credit for. You know, like I feel a little bit like online video, like super culturally important. Don't get me wrong, I do that for a living. I'm not gonna badmouth it. But I feel like, you know, now VidCon's really big, and I feel like it's getting like a lot of like love and support. What's the thing that provides all that value and that is extremely important to the fabric of society, but we don't give it all that credit? And the idea of the story jumped out at me, and knowing some authors and knowing that like, you know, they're very much like, I got a day job, I put words on pieces of paper, and it's just sort of like, you know, I feel like they're underappreciated. I want to love them more. I want to like revel in that thing more, because like thanks. Because whether it's like a puppet show or a song or a poem or the story of a god king Gilgamesh or the story of a piece of clay over the last 3,000 years, like I just want to get into that. I just want to appreciate it and love it for a weekend. And so that's the thing that I decided that we would do. And I wrote here a thing that I wanted to say because I think that stories and each other are the most valuable things that we have.
Thank you guys. Oh God. Oh my God. I only have 7 minutes, so I gotta tell this story very quickly. But one time I was in San Francisco, and it was one of those school visits where 4 people knew who I was. It was like 2008. And like 850 people didn't know who I was, but the 4 people who did know who I was were so excited, and they all had on like handmade T-shirts, NerdCon T-shirts, but there were like 796 kids who were like, well, I guess I don't have to go to English class today, and so I had to like win them over, and it's super hard to win over a crowd like that, and I was so scared, but they really liked me. They were laughing at everything I said. It was so enjoyable. Everything was going perfectly. And then at the end of my incredibly moving performance, I said, are there any questions? And like 800 hands shot up, and I was like, I am a genius. And I pointed at someone, and they said, Mr. Green, are you aware that your fly is down? And it wasn't just it wasn't down, it was like open. It was like in all of my excitement and enthusiasm, it had just gotten more, it was just a nightmare. And I walked out, and I always very subtly do this when I walk out, and this is the first time in my whole life since that day in San Francisco when I've been like, oh no! I am a great fan of pop fiction, popular fiction, or what's sometimes called genre fiction. I like fiction that people like. I like writing it and I like reading it, and I am a great defender of it. I like romance novels, and I like The Babysitter's Club, and I like series books. And I like fantasy, and I like sci-fi, and I like mysteries, and wherever there are people saying, those kinds of books are just read by teenagers, and teenagers are stupid, or those kinds of books are just read by lonely old men, and lonely old men are pathetic. Wherever those books are, those are the books for me. I try to look on Twitter to see what books people are really mad about, because I often like them. I want to defend, I guess, today, popular fiction, or what's often called escapist fiction, against the criticism that there is something wrong with escapism. So I am stuck inside of this body. You likely have a similar problem. I have no way of confirming that you have the problem, but I am stuck inside of just this one body that I've had since I was a baby, and I, at least as far as I can tell, will always have until I'm dead, and then I won't have it anymore, and I suspect that I will be nostalgic for it. Okay, so a weird thing about my body is that actually 90% of the cells in my body are not me. They are microbes. Yeah. And another weird thing about this body that I'm stuck inside of is that it has a brain, which I process or identify as a mind, that has thoughts, that makes thoughts all the time. I am sometimes in control of these thoughts, but I am often not. And that is a very strange thing to say, the statement, I am not in control of my thoughts. Imagine a popular pop song called I Can't Stop Thinking About You. Well, that's a very odd thing to say. Why? Why can't you stop thinking about something when you are the thinker of the thing? Like how is it that I am not in control of this thing that I call mine when it comes to my thoughts, but I'm also not in control of this thing that I call mine when it comes to my body, because my body can fail and reject me in all kinds of ways. The more I think about what it means to be me, the more I think that it kind of just means the thing that that people associate with my prison, with what I'm stuck inside of, And I don't know about you. I also have this. This is a little personal. I apologize, but it is Mental Health Awareness Day. I also have this mental illness called obsessive compulsive disorder. That's a weird thing to cheer for. Oh, I guess you're cheering for Mental Health Awareness Day. I'm like, I don't like it. And I have these obsessive thought spirals, which I think like most of us have, where we find it very difficult to like stop focusing on one topic. So for instance, if I walk away from my car and I start to think that it might not have been locked, it becomes extremely difficult for me, progressively more difficult for me not to go back to the car and lock it, and then often I will then leave the car and I will be like, but are we sure that we locked it? And then the use of the royal we implying that inside of me there are these like warring forces that are both being identified as me, even though they kind of definitionally can't both be me at the same time. And I will go back and try to lock it again, and etc. until it is suitably locked. And like that seems crazy. I know. Well, it technically is crazy, but like the reason it seems crazy is because you are not stuck inside of the obsessive thought spiral, which you will do anything to end, even if it means having to lock your car 14 or 15 times, because the pleasure of having that obsessive thought spiral end or go away is worth whatever number of times it takes to do the thing, because you don't feel like you're in control of your thoughts. So this prison that I feel like I am inside of all of the time, only having access to this one body, only having access to this one consciousness, only having access to a brain that is wired in my particular suboptimal way as opposed to the suboptimal ways that I'm sure all of your brains are wired. It is absolutely exhausting and infuriating, and the more I let myself be stuck inside of it, the less I am able to acknowledge and celebrate the humanity of others, and the more those who are distant from me feel fundamentally other, the more the problems of people who may live far away or live in circumstances that are different from mine feel like they are quote-unquote not my problems. Again, as if there is such a thing as me. So, fiction for me, stories for me, are the only way out of that. They are the only way out of this prison that I am stuck inside of. I can live inside the lives of someone else for a while when I'm writing, or when I'm reading, or even when I'm listening to Night Vale. I can live inside different bodies and different consciousnesses. Not completely, I know, but at least in a little way. At least in a little way you can break out, and that is this incredible gift. It is also, however, the last thing I want to say, this incredible responsibility. Because we're here to celebrate stories this weekend, and it's awesome, and it's so exciting, and I don't know about you, but I'm having so much fun. But the thing that we must be careful of is that, of course, because stories have that power, that escapist power, we have to be careful how we use them, right? Like with great power comes great responsibility, and stories can be used evilly. Stories can be used to make others seem less human. Stories can be used to deny access or to deny power or to deny agency to others. And so as we continue through this wonderful day, I would say I love stories because they let me out of this prison of myself, and also that we have to be careful and excited, both excited about stories, but also careful to try to tell good ones well. Thank you guys so much. You rule. Bye.